Well, we are honored to have our next guests here with us. Richard and Tina, are you there? Can you unmute and we'll bring you to the
Oh, there
front?
we go.
How about that?
Hey, there we are. Technology is working. We'll cross our fingers that it holds out for the
Yes.
That's right.
time we have together here. But welcome, you guys. It's an honor. It's a privilege to have you here. You guys were recent guests on our podcast and just thought, let's have them back. 30 minutes is going to be pretty tight. We've got a little bit of wiggle room. And so on the back end of yours, if we go a few minutes over, that's okay. But let's roll with it.
All right. Well, I thought we ought to start out with a little bit of introduction and tell you a little bit about what we do and what we're about. And Tina and I began teaching stockmanship, which is all Bud Williams and Eunice Williams principles in 2005. So we're rapidly approaching 20 years on this path that we've decided to go down. And we think that stockmanship is probably one of the most important parts of ranching that is many times overlooked by people because what you don't know, you can't fix and you don't do anything about. And we can help people turn that around. And just a little bit, I guess, about what these principles affect. And of course, cattle, sheep, goats, reindeer, elk, buffalo, bison, whatever you call them. I'm still confused on that. Red deer, Sika deer, about anything you can, and camels in Australia. So about anything that you can drive or can be driven, these principles apply to. So this is really a culmination of 45 years of Bud's intense observation skills and realizing that what he does is what's causing the animals to do what they do. And so, in that light, we must realize that we weren't all born with the capabilities to be great stockmen because we haven't had any experience. And a lot of times, the experiences we have could have been better. I'll just kind of put it that way because that's the best way I know how to put it. So um, it this I see this as an individual endeavor. It's a personal process and a lifelong endeavor, really, because it's not going to happen overnight. We didn't get this way overnight, and we can't change the way we are overnight. And a lot of that is related to our human instincts, and those come into play when we start working with animals, no matter what they are. Those human instincts in many cases are counterproductive and go against what we're trying to to get our animals to perform and to end up doing for us. So uh, we all have them, and we all have to try to counteract those human instincts if we want a good result with handling animals. One of our main things is it's proper stockmanship that we teach and promote, and that would be, I guess, a little bit different than what low stress stockmanship is. I think that's kind of been an overused phrase that has gone through the cattle industry, and uh, we're into proper stockmanship, and that's a little bit different than low stress stockmanship, which it ends up being low stress stockmanship, but there's more to it than just being quiet or moving at the right speed in the right place at the right time. So we're into the animal's well-being, and that's always been our our foremost objective was to give the animals what they need and to recognize when they are lacking in those things that they need and providing whatever it is that the livestock need to get a better result, get better production, less morbidity, less mortality, and all the things associated with livestock production. We claim that we work on the insides of animals as opposed to conventional livestock handling, which mainly works on the outsides of animals. They see the physical side of it and they work on the physical side, and we're a little different in that regard, in that we work on the insides, or we call it's the mental part of the animals rather than just the physical side of animals. And from that, you get a much better result. And also along those same lines, it a lot of people, including myself, for the longest time didn't realize that this is a team event. Um, it's not me against the livestock or you against the livestock or the livestock against you. It's we're going to do this and we're going to get this done together. And when we get finished, we will all be in a calm, collected, productive state. And we're big on calmness because we feel that production is directly related to calmness in animals, as is calmness in people. Calm people produce more. I mean, let's look at it that way. And stress is the problem that we all work at overcoming, not only in our lives, but in the lives of the livestock that we handle and produce. Um, it's been overlooked for ages. And growing up on a dairy farm, I had no idea that stress was such an important factor in what we're attempting to do when we're working with these livestock. And to overcome that, we must recognize that it's a human interaction with the livestock that relieves that stress on animals and allows us to be seen as a provider, that we can give you whatever you need, and all you need to do is to stay well and to produce. And we've seen over and over circumstances where just relieving stress on especially newly weaned or newly received calves can make a huge difference in not only how they perform, but their well-being and the health of the animal all the way through production process. So we were at a stockmanship school in Arcola, Saskatchewan, and the lady rolled up to me and she said, "Well, you're just nothing but a marriage counselor." And it kind of took me back because I'd never been called anything like that. I'd been called a lot of things in my life, but I had never had anybody call me a marriage counselor. And I said, "What?" She said, "You're nothing but a marriage counselor." And I said, "Well, I'm just, I don't know what for sure what that means, but I'm going to take it as a compliment." She said, "Good, that's how it was meant." And we like to look at that in a way that it's not only the well-being of the livestock, but it provides for the well-being and the quality of life for the individuals that handle the livestock. So it's in many cases, and I'm sure a lot of the participants that are here today listening to this have worked with spouses or worked with children or friends, neighbors, or whatever it is that you can find help when you need it. And it's always nice when you get finished that not only the cattle are happy about the event, but the people that were involved in the effort to accomplish whatever it is they're trying to get done. And in the end, they're all still friends too, and that's we feel that that's an important part of living on a ranch and enjoying quality of life for us and the animals that we handle. We feel like that there's mainly three concerns for health that we try to look at. And of course, emotional fitness is the number one on our list, or mental aspect of it. If an animal isn't happy, then they don't produce well. And in looking at production, Bud always said that production loss is really the largest loss that we find in any production operation. And if you compare production loss to morbidity and mortality, morbidity and mortality would only be a drop in the bucket compared to the production loss that we never see. And that's the problem with it. We don't recognize what the optimum production rate of these animals could have been because we can't achieve that. And so, in looking at that side and keeping animals happy and content and calm, then we get good production, good reproduction, good breed up, breed back. Uh, we've seen better AI results simply by changing the way that the animals are gathered and put into the chute and AI'd. We've seen less sick, less death, and those were in feedlots all over North America, including Canada and Mexico. And I think that as time goes on, we'll see more and more of that. We also look at good nutrition and, of course, clean and available water. Uh, we don't necessarily drive the animals to the feed and water. In fact, we feel like that the animals should be driven away from the feed and let the animals walk up to the feed on their own, and to feel like that the feeding area or the bunk is the safest place in the world for them to be. And I think, along with our feelings of safety, I think animal safety and their feeling of where they are, is it in relation to is it safe or not, is a big part of the picture as to what we accomplish as far as production with animals that we raise. And then we feel like that proper exercise is probably another major component in how productive we are with animals. If these animals are put in a lot and left there for 30 days or longer, um, it I can relate that to me, and I need a road trip every now and again because I need new scenery, and I think lots of people feel that way. And I think that we all do better with changes in our lives that reinvigorate us, recharge us, and get us to feeling good about where we are and what we're doing. Um, I guess this would be a good time at the halfway point to throw out that the universal law of stockmanship is the animals are never wrong. And that's a big hurdle for most of us because throughout most of my life until I met Bud and went to our first school, I thought the animals were always wrong if they didn't do what I wanted them to. And looking back, I see all the errors in that perception that allowed me to place the blame somewhere other than where it belonged. And if you can get past that hurdle, I think that the rest of it becomes easier to assimilate. There you go.
Yeah, that's right.
To
Apply.
apply
Yeah.
and to get animals that you have complete control of. I used to try to list the benefits of better stockmanship, and the list just got so long that I've just given up on it. But I still keep adding to it. I even at the last in the last month, I've gotten two more that would apply to that list of benefits, which is lengthy. You know, when you get in a tight spot with animals like a wildfire headed across your place, it's always nice to be able to go out and gather those animals and to put them wherever it is that they're going to be safe and away from the oncoming fire, and to have them in a state of mind when you get them there that that's where they want to be. And we look at loading and sorting the same way. We let animals do what they want to do, only we set it up so that that's what we want to accomplish at the same time. And I'm a firm believer that if animals don't want to go where I would like for them to go, I I say, well, I don't want you to go there. Let's go somewhere else. And I just take them away. And that has been a big plus for me in my handling experience with animals because once I take them away from where I originally wanted them to go and take them somewhere else, now they don't want to be there. And I say, well, then maybe you want to be elsewhere and else. Oh, and look, they got by. And look, they're going back the other way and that's exactly the way I want them to go. So I always set it up that there's always two options, and that way I can always let them do what they want to do, and that way when they get there, that's where they wanted to be, and in that light, then they're always willing and easily handled, and we were uh, trading a lot of stockers at one point in our lives and gathering and weighing stockers every 10 days just to get an average daily gain and to look them over better and to see how they were doing and and just to handle them. I think the more handling, if it's properly done, I don't think you can do too much handling. I believe that a lot of us see our animals every day or every few days. And what people need to realize is that was an educational opportunity in that viewing, in that in that meeting with the livestock that you own, so that it was an opportunity to handle the livestock and for them to be handled, and this adds up over time. And if every time you see those animals, and even if you see them 52 times a year, once a week, that's 52 good things that you taught them that you can use um, when the time presents itself. And we're big on preparing animals for what we're going to ask them to do. In other words, a few days before we load stock in a trailer to go away, we'll run them through the chute with all of it open, just so they know where to go when you want them to go there. And they're always easy to load, easy to handle, and face front on the trailer when we put them on. They don't want to come back out. So those are just some of the things that we try to get people to see. And I guess a big part of it is is looking at what animals did and understanding that whatever they did is what you caused them to do. And there again, that kind of goes along with the universal law of stockmanship. The animals did what you asked. The problem was you didn't ask the right thing, or you didn't ask in the right way. And oftentimes, those human instincts, they get in the way of us asking properly to get animals to do what we want to achieve with them. And you just have to see that whatever you're getting as far as results with animals is what you cause. And so it's important that we start taking responsibility for what our animals do is exactly what we caused them to do. So um,
Yeah,
I,
there.
I think
Yeah.
that the animal's perception, and this kind of goes along with our positioning, and I have very little clue as to where I need to be when I go out into a pasture, and it, I still feel that Bud was 100% right when he said that it all starts with the gather. And I don't know where I need to be before I get there. So we have like a, I don't know, maybe it's a 1 second plan, or maybe even quicker than that sometimes. We don't make any plans before we get there, other than we know what we've got to accomplish, and we'll make a plan as we go. That's our plan, because the plans fall apart immediately upon application. And so we found that it's better just not to worry about. You don't know where to be. You're almost always going to be wrong before you can be right. And that's kind of a big issue with most of us, and that too is a human instinct. Nobody wants to admit that they're wrong, and that's one of the hardest things that people ever have to do, is to admit you're wrong and admit that change might be good for you. Um, I was just at the right stage of life, I think, when I started reading Bud's first articles in the Stockman Grass Farmer, in that the rodeo was all gone out of me, and chasing cattle had become less fun and counterproductive in what I wanted to do and how fast I wanted to get it done. And a lot of times I see speed as, you know, slow is fast to us, and less is more. And I think that will get you a long ways down the path of seeing what you're causing, and understanding that if it isn't what you want, then stop doing that, because it's just going to get worse. Because as the animals become agitated, upset, stressed, then they don't want to perform for you. They just want away. I want to get away from this situation. I don't want any part of it. And so they brush up, or they hide, or they run, or they just want to get away from what's going on, as you and I would do also. So it's the animal's perception is all that really matters about our position. It doesn't matter what you or I think where we need to be is the right place, because in most cases, it won't be in the right place. Um, Another thing about animals, I think that we all need to get clear up front in the beginning, that animals, I believe, can read our mind. And if you go out with a bad attitude and you've had a rough day with the other half, better half, whatever it is, um, I think that you start to see that problems arise from bad attitude. And the best thing that I think you can do if you don't like where you are or what you're doing is to do something else or find another place to be. And especially when there's going to be an event or an interaction with animals that's going to create stress. And without a doubt, anytime you gather animals from large pastures, put them in small areas that have 6 foot tall fences, there's going to be some stress there involved. And you have to have animals that can perform in those situations for you. And I think one of the biggest things is to get animals ready for that situation before they get to it. And that can be done long before we get there if we'll just do that.
Probably getting close to question time.
Looks like we have 4 minutes left. We
Yep,
could
you guys are doing great.
talk about animal instincts as related to human instincts. They're pretty well the opposite. There's the opposite right there. Um, it seems we as humans have these built-in instincts that have came from eons back, and we don't recognize that getting straight in behind an animal and shoving it forward is going to be a good thing, and especially not good for them and not good for us either.
Not good.
In the end, it just won't be good. But that's where we want to be, and that the reason is that human instinct starts to be an overcoming process there in that. So um, there's really 7 instincts that animals have that once you see those and you understand them and start to appreciate how much good they will do you and be an advantage for you and your handling, then you can start to use those instincts to your favor and stay out of those blind spots so that animals can see you no matter what. They want to see that pressure. And so ultimately they'll turn and look at you. And once they turn to look at you, then they're turned the wrong way straight away. And that's not the direction. I usually want to start animals and I want to let them walk away straight. And the only way to get them to do that is for them to trust us enough that they can walk away and still see us and still see that pressure that we're working on and the lines that we go. I contend that any time that you have animals going straight toward a gate or toward anything, wherever you want them, if you've got them going straight and you do nothing to stop that or to change that, they'll hit whatever they are headed toward. Now, that a lot of times used to be a fence for me because I didn't have them going straight to where I wanted them to go. But I focus on all the animals now, not just on the back of the animals. That back one will get along fine, and I know right where it's at all the time. I want to know what the middle of the herd's doing, and especially I want to see what I'm causing in the lead, because the lead is of utmost importance to me. And by my position, I can direct that lead animal from a long ways away, far longer than I ever thought in the beginning possible. So
I think we're probably close to.
I guess with that, I hope I've
That's great, you guys.
and I hope that you'll pursue this farther in your search for knowledge and education, and hope that you'll start to see a huge difference in how proper stockmanship will be a huge benefit for you and your operation. We have our contact information up, I hope, on the screen.
Is that showing?
Yep, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
So phone number and the hand-in-hand livestock solutions.com. Yeah, perfect.
Yep.
Perfect. That is great. And then also there looks like you guys are offering for the first 5 people
Mm-hmm.
who sign up a 30-minute consultation.
Yep.
So that'd probably be, I guess, just via Zoom or phone, right?
Whatever. Yep.
Remote.
Yep.
Yep.
Whatever you want. Yep.
Okay. Well, that's
Well,
pretty
Jared,
awesome.
thanks a lot for having us, and thanks to the participants that endured this conversation.
And we are grateful that you guys would come, and we're so grateful that you're perpetuating the legacy of your parents, Bud and Eunice, and
Yeah.
what an yeah, what an amazing they I don't know. Does anybody in here not know Bud Williams? Maybe. Was
Well,
am I
and
am I
stockmanship.com, and I can put that. That's mom and dad's website, and that's another really good reference. So
there we go.
pleasure being here. Thanks for having us, and I hope your stock handling always goes well.
Well, thank you. Yeah,
Yep.
it's been a blessing to our lives immensely. And yeah, I would own that title as marriage counselor, Richard. I think you talk you talk
One
about the
time,
emotional stress on animals. They're just a reflection of us, and like you
exactly.
mentioned, so we have absolutely, if we can get our relationships in order, then we're
Yeah,
going to be in a lot better space to be able to go and work with animals. So
yeah.
yeah.
Attitude. It's all about attitude. So
Yep.
thanks again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate that. Tina, have you got a quick story about your dad that you'd like to share? Anything that comes to mind? Dad and mom, if there's anything, you can give it a thought while you're doing that. I'll share one of my
Oh,
favorite stories
Broken.
from
that's what I was thinking.
mine. Mine was after going to Bud school for the first time. I think it was 2023, so 20 years ago. Holy cow. That next summer we came. I mean, yeah, so we learned those principles. We saw some good results. The next year we tried to apply them on a large scale. We were way over our heads trying to herd and manage cattle on the steep, rugged mountain country where we manage, and I failed miserably and was just frustrated and just like, man, I can't figure this out. And I called Bud and was kind of bemoaning my losses, and he just said, "Hey, Jared, basically knock that off. Stop beating yourself up. At least you know now that you're failing."
Mhm.
And he was not, I know he could come off as maybe a little bit grouchy. He never was that way because I think he knew that I was always hard enough on myself. He didn't need to be that way for me.
Right.
He
Right.
was always very patient and understanding and just said, "Okay, here's some things you can work on. Start
Right.
to be more observant." So,
Well, it's a learning experience, and that's what people have to get across too, is the bridge of looking at failure as some kind of a negative. Failure is nothing but a step to success, and especially with handling livestock. But making the same mistakes over and over and over won't really help you. You need to evaluate what caused the mistake or the failure, and then try to adjust so that you don't keep doing that, or find a way, move somewhere that you're going to get a positive result and what you want.
Mhm.
So
cool.
I
Okay.
I finally learned that failure was my best friend.
Yeah, I
Is
appreciate
is
that.
what you learn. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you have a story, Tina, and then maybe Mark has
Well,
a quick question,
I
then
don't
we'll
know.
roll.
My favorite my favorite story. I was in high school, so it was a couple of years ago, and Dad and I were working cows in the corral, and I had been told many times not to wave my arm, at the livestock. And evidently that day I was not listening, and Dad explained to me that the next time I waved my arm, he was going to break it off. And so but we didn't know is that his boss, the one who owned the cattle that we were working, was standing close, waiting for an opportune moment to visit with Dad. He decided that was not the opportune moment, and he left. And he came back a couple hours later and he said, "So, Tina," he said, "I see that you have not waved your arm again." And I said, "That is right." And what's really funny, and it took me a minute to realize, when I go into a corral or a small area with livestock, my hands immediately go in my pocket. And I was like, why did I do that? Well, that's why I do that.
You
I
did.
put my hands in my pocket, or put my thumbs in my belt loop, or my hands in my back pocket. And that way it takes all of that. It was a really good lesson that I learned without having my arm broken. But like you say, it was an important thing. It is really, really important that you not act. You're not going to use fear and force
all
in
body
any way.
position. And
Yeah.
if you can't stop them, let them go, because
Right.
Don't try.
Always
we
get
can
them back.
always get them back. That's the easy part.
Yeah.
Never.
That arm wave is counterproductive in so many ways.
And causes so many problems that people aren't aware of. So
Go ahead, Mark. You got a question or comment?
Well, I had a bud story, but if you don't have time, I'll keep it to myself.
Keep it short. We'll be good.
We were at a clinic, and we were trying herding at the time, and so I took the young man that was giving it an attempt, and took him to a clinic. And on day 2, we got there, and before the class started, there was a fellow that walked up to Bud, and he said, "Let me see if I've got this straight. If we go out and we gather a set of cattle in the morning and we're heading them towards the corral and things blow up and they're running past us and we're just having a hell of a time, what you're telling me is I caused that." And Bud quietly said, "Were they doing it before you got out there?"
it's
That's
perfect.
great. That's
Absolutely perfect.
What a way to teach, right? What a way
Absolutely.
That's right.
let them run into their own pressure that they created.
Yeah, we seldom see
Thanks, Mark.
animals jumping over fences until we get in to do something with them, and then it's a problem. So, or can be. Yeah,
Can be.
can
Yeah,
be.
well, Richard and Tina, thank you so much for being on the summit today. We appreciate your contribution. And
Yeah, we enjoyed it.
okay, we'll catch you on the next one, you guys.
You betcha.
Okay, great.